Hello and welcome to episode number 2 of this podcast, the Kenton County Playbook. And, of course, Kenton County is where we originate from, as we are in downtown Covington right now in the studio. It is Scott Borders and, again, Brian Blair joining me. Brian and I have been longtime partners, and this has kind of been a dream come true for us. We also had the opportunity, I think our last podcast, we went over what was going to happen in the regional tournaments. It turned out we called some of those correctly.
Yeah, but not a ton. Hopefully
we missed a couple.
Yeah, we missed a couple.
We had the good fortune. We have been to the 9th region tournament probably the previous 2 years. And this year we decided to try something a little different. Yeah. Went down to the 8th region tournament, which turned out to be North and South Oldham. David Levitt at North Oldham with Rajon Rondo's son, who's a 7th grader averaging 4 points a game. He didn't play. We didn't get to see him play. But after North Oldham has owned that series in the season, it was South Oldham that prevailed in overtime as a shot was missed. So we even got the better of the two games between the 9th and 8th
absolutely.
region.
Yeah, it was fun, and I was going to tell you, and I should have told you this before we started, but the big kid for North Oldham, number 15, who he is Alan Houston's nephew.
There you go, Alan Houston.
So there you go.
Nephew.
Yeah, I found that out the other day.
He didn't have the jump shot Alan Houston had, but he was one of those kids, really big, had some good post moves. Just wasn't overly aggressive again. We've seen that before, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Of course, Lloyd with E.J. Walker going down. But we're going to take them one at a time as the bracket is set, Brian. So we've got the state tournament bracket. I think you and I tentatively may go on the Saturday of the state tournament, which is great in the state of Kentucky. You get the two games in the morning and early afternoon, and then those winners play for the state finals that evening in Rupp Arena.
They tried to change that up a little bit a couple years ago where they played the semifinals and then the finals on Sunday, and
it just didn't work.
It just didn't work. It kind of fell flat. I think most people like that tradition and plus, you had to pay extra money to stay in a hotel Saturday night.
What is it? You can end up playing 4 games in 3 days if you have the Thursday. It's a lot of basketball.
It is.
So, I mean, you take that for what you will.
Look, they're young kids, man. They're fine. You and I couldn't do it, but, hey, they're fine.
And, by the way, I had a chance to be in Rupp Arena. It was more solemn circumstances as my Louisville Cardinals went down in the first round. Was not pleased about that. But I did think, by the way, Jay Billis all these years has been right. The best soft serve I've had anywhere is in Rupp Arena.
Did you do vanilla?
Mix. I did the mix. You have to do the mix the first time, yeah.
I'm a vanilla guy, so a lot of people would have said that about me for a long time. I'm pretty vanilla.
I wouldn't change anything I did. All right, we're going to jump in here. We could go all day. We're going to jump in here. So out of, and this is what's fun about this, the first round game features kind of an interesting game. Ashland Blazer, pretty much the Tomcats, they had a war going on in Region 16. They ended up defeating longtime rival Boyd County, and this is a Boyd County team they had lost to. They also beat them one other time, actually 2 other times. Out of the 3 they played in the regular season, they beat them twice, and then beat them 55-47. Ryan Bonner's team, the Ashland Blazer Tomcats, they moved on. They will play Callaway County and the Lakers. The Lakers had to defeat Marshall County, and they won easily, 73-56, coached by Brad Cleaver. Now, if you look over their resume a little bit, one of the best wins they had this year was a Sweet 16 team, and that was against North Laurel by 1 point. So they are 1-0 versus the Sweet 16, where Ashland played Danville Christian and Lawrence County, both in the Sweet 16, and beat them both pretty solidly, but lost to Great Crossing, only lost by 6 in a high-scoring game, and lost to Bowling Green, who, as we'll talk about later, one of the most dangerous teams to me in the tournament. So I really like Ashland Blazer in this game, Bryant. They were 2-2 against Sweet 16 opponents. They were one team that's played almost the most Sweet 16 opponents. They're led by a senior, Xander Carter, who's averaging 24 points a game, shoots 44% from beyond the arc, has hit 60 of them. They have Caleb Clark and Drew Smith also averaging in double digits. Tyson Lalana, senior, Preston Hoskins. They start 3 seniors and 2 juniors. In Callaway County, led by Jonah Butler, who's also had a nice season. 22 points a game, 10 boards, and by the way, 38% from beyond the arcs, hit 48 of them. And he is a senior, along with Eli Finley, averaging 21 points a game and 4 boards. And then you have 2 other seniors in Stephen Lane and Connor Lockhart. And then you have Luke Armstrong, who is a sophomore, breaking into that top 5. Decent three-point shooting team. They've hit 213, but Ashland's hit 277. They hit 9 a game. A lot of good things to talk about with them. They average about 65 points a game, a 50% shooting team. About the same for Callaway. Brian, I really like Ashland in this game. What you got?
Well, I'm going to give you my favorite stat of the entire Sweet 16, and it comes out early because this is the first game. But at Troy Howe on Twitter, I don't know if anybody follows Troy Howe on Twitter. He put this on Twitter after these two teams got matched up because this is the true East-West, Eastern Kentucky, Western Kentucky matchup, okay? So get this. It is 318 miles from Ashland Paul Blazer High School to Windsor, Canada.
Literally Region 16 and Region 1 got messed up. Yeah.
So it is 318 miles for them to get to Canada. For them to get, if this game was at Callaway County, it is 378 miles from Ashland to Callaway County.
Who
It
knew?
is closer to Canada than these two teams are together.
Brian, I am sitting here absolutely amazed right now.
Callaway County is the 2A state champ, so that's something to think about. The 2A state champ, the All-A state champ in this tournament. And we'll talk about Danville Christian more in a minute. They did meet on December 28th, 2001. Ashland won 75-59. I'm going to go with you. Ashland Paul Blazer gets the win over the Lakers, which is one of the best names in this Sweet 16.
Ashland comes in the 16th ranked team, Callaway the 6th, so we're both going a little bit against the ratings overall in that. So that leaves us in our second game. This one also will be, I believe, March 28th, if I'm not mistaken. March 26th. The first one will be the night game, 8:30, so it'll be the late game, March 26th. This one will be the early game at 11 a.m., and it features Bowling Green coming in ranked 14th against Adair County, ranked 22nd. Now, the Bowling Green Purples, coached by D.G. Sherrill. And this is a team, like I said, to me, one of the most dangerous teams in this tournament, beat a very good Clinton County Bulldog team 66-59 to advance in Region 4. Now, we'll start off with this. They were defeated by Adair County in the only game they played, and they lost by 10, so that is significant. They also lost to a team in the tournament in Henderson County, so they're 1-2. They beat Ashland Blazer, who we just talked about. They also beat Clinton County during the season, beat a good university, just whipped a good University Heights team. They are led by Luke Idlet, averaging about 15 a game, but more importantly, this is one of the best percentages from beyond the arc. He shoots at a 59% clip, hitting 94 in a high school season is amazing. One of the best shooters, if not percentage-wise, the best shooter in the state. So look out for number 12, a senior. This is a complete senior starting lineup. Joseph Hurt averaging 14 points a game. Braylon Banks, they've hit 244 threes on the year, but as a team shoot it at 46%, 7 a game. They're a 54% field goal shooting team. They average 72 a game, but they'll give up almost 72 a game. And then you got Adair County coming out of Region 5 after defeating a traditional powerhouse in North Hardin, and they whipped them 62-48. The Indians going on to win that Region 5 title with head coach Deron Breeze. They were the 22nd ranked team. Losses include North Oldham. They lost by 9. Newport, a team we're very familiar with. A very good ranked Warren Central team. They lost by 2. And a good North Oldham team. They did beat Bowling Green in the time they met. We just said that, by 4. They whipped Louisville Trinity, who's always a pretty good team. Beat your alma mater. Beat George Rogers, Clark, and Russell County. All very good wins. They're led by Connor Loy. 20 points a game, 6 boards. They have a pretty good three-point shooter in Dawson Gilbert, a junior. He is hit 83 of them on the year at a 45% clip. This is a team who's actually hit more three-pointers, 250, but with a worse percentage at 39%. But they're both around 7 threes a game. I think in this one, I'm going with what I know, and DG Sherrill and the Purples of Bowling Green, I picked to advance.
Well, I'm going to take Adair County in this game, actually. The Indians 30-5 since
Our first split?
It is. Since the beginning of 2025. So since January, Adair is 21-2 when they were 15-0 in their region. And I do think the experience of beating Bowling Green early in the year, as you said, Bowling Green, a good basketball team. I mean, they beat Warren Central 61-59 in the 14th district, and that was the closest game. I mean, they rolled through the regional tournament to get to there. And I know Bowling Green is one of those teams that it seems like they're in Rupp a lot for the Sweet 16. But I'm going to take Adair. I'm going to take the Indians and Darren Breeze to blow by Bowling Green.
All right, and I like the added
alliteration, kind of, sort of.
Well, it's not really alliteration.
Yeah.
We'll go over the meanings
All
of
right.
grammatical terms later. Okay. All right. Now, this is exciting because I've been prepping it. If I got to tease this is the one I would have teased. This is my favorite matchup of the first round. And one of the reasons is we got to see in person one of these teams, but you've got to check out Steven Simpson's South Oldham Dragons. Ranked 19th. A lot of people thought all year long they were better than North Oldham, but North Oldham owned them in the regular season, beating them a couple of times. They meet in the regional final, and South Oldham comes away with a 53 victory in overtime. A great game. We watched it. This is a team in South Oldham that also beat 12th-ranked Cooper, 18th-ranked Butler, and they also beat Trinity by 1 point. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This is a team that will give up 73 points a game while scoring 73 points a game, but they have two players over 100 three-pointers. I didn't see anyone in the state more than Julian Miles, the senior. 130 three-pointers out of 310. So not only has he hit 130, he's doing it at a 42% clip. But, oh, by the way, don't forget Jake Fithian, another senior. 4 of the 5 starters are all seniors on this team, the other one a junior. He was 108 three-pointers out of 249 for an even higher clip at 43%. 2 others are over 50 in that first 5. You have William Burnside. He averages 10 a game and 5 boards. Not a great rebounding team, not a big team, but their three-point totals, they shoot 49% from the field, but from 3. 424 threes in the year.
Yeah.
Blows everyone else in the Sweet 16 away.
They're at a gym right now shooting threes.
Right, they have to be.
That's what they do, yeah.
1,081 attempts, and we can attest to that. We saw quite a few attempts at the regional final.
That's like you playing pickup.
It is. That's what I did. Except I played less defense, if you can believe that. I just kind of waited around the half court stripe and waited for my shot. But that's at a 39% clip. So if you're going to shoot 424, but you're going to do it, my rule of thumb is over 35 bombs away.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They're 1-0 versus Sweet 16 competition. Like we said, that was Cooper. But those are amazing. Now we look at who they play on the other side. Danville Christian and the Warriors, coached by Sean Busick, beat Mercer County, the Titans of Mercer County, in a low-scoring 39-36, which is right down their alley. That's what Danville Christian likes. They're a big team. South Oldham, Mighty Mites. This Danville Christian team goes 6'11", 6'10" in the front court, a rarity in high school basketball. So they are big. Gauleek Attany, the junior, averaging about 17 points and 9 boards. Titus Boyd, the senior, and Luau Aye, the senior. Titus Boyd averaging 15 a game and 4 boards. This is not a team that they will underwhelm you from the three-point line. We go from 424 to 97, lowest in the Sweet 16. 97 made three-pointers. They only hit 3 a game. Compare that with South Oldham. 12.5 a game, three-pointers. And this is a team that hits 3 a game. They're 0-1 against the Sweet 16, 45% from the field. I thought that might be bigger. 55 points a game, but hold opponents to one of the Sweet 16's best, 45.2 points a game. This is the just quintessential small shooting team, big pounding in the paint team, and you say, gee, how do you even pick that? I think it's the most intriguing, fascinating game of the first round. And Brian, I do like South Oldham just because, man, they could hit those 3-pointers, but they got nothing to guard that front court. This is one of the most dangerous picks of my first round.
Yeah, Danville Christian 20-0 in 12th region play. And here's their path to win the region. They beat Somerset 50-46 in double overtime, Southwestern 47-46, and then you already said it, Mercer County 39-36 in overtime. They're the All-A state champs. They're used to playing close games. Now, South Oldham obviously can shoot the basketball. This is their first trip to the Sweet 16 since 2016. Ironically, in 2016, they came out of the losers bracket. First meeting ever between the two schools. I know that I talked to someone at Owen County where I teach, and he said South Oldham wins it by 15. I just don't see it. I think South Oldham playing in a big gym like Rupp Arena, you don't get a chance to go in there and shoot around.
Right.
So how does that affect their shooting early? And I just think Danville Christian, too much inside. I'm going to say Danville Christian in a close one. I think the Warriors get it done.
And obviously, this is going to be the team who can control the pace of this game. I think that's going to be a big deal. If they can slow it down and get into their half-court set, I think it's going to be very difficult for South Oldham to come out on top. I agree with you.
But you know what? I thought South Oldham and North Oldham, I kind of thought that would be a little higher scoring game than what it was. I mean, that game was, 53-50, 54-51, whatever it was. I mean, and it wasn't an up and down the floor kind of game. I just don't think South Oldham has enough inside because you're right. If you get into a half-court game and you can just pump it down to the big guys, although I teach math, so 3-pointers are worth more than 2-pointers, okay?
Yeah.
So if you can make 12 and a half of those, which you can't make a half, but you know what I'm saying,
but
that's a huge advantage.
They really don't have anybody who can contend with 6'10 and 6'11.
Right.
That's what worried me about picking them. That's why I say that's an interesting game.
Yeah.
We're going to follow that up by moving on to our next game. That game, too, was the 26th. I believe that was the 6 p.m. game. We're still staying at the 26th, the 1:30 game. Again, I keep saying they're interesting, but I do like the matchup. These are two Louisville teams. Louisville always hates when they get the two Louisville regions matched up in the first round. It's happened more often than you think, but these two teams did not play each other, I believe, in the regular season. So, for everybody else in Louisville who had to face St. X, J-Town did not have to. Butler really was the regional favorite, and that's who J-Town beat after losing to Butler in the regular season, beat them in the regional final. Butler was number 18. J-Town unranked, beat Butler by 9, 60-51. The Chargers are coached by Richard Duncan. They're 26-6. They lost to a very good Manual team by 4, who was ranked 8th. They lost to Pleasure Ridge Park, who is always good in that region, and they lost to South Laurel. So they lost that game by 5 points. They had a big win over Ballard, who I think was 24 in the rankings. So that was a good win for them. Their basic players, Cameron McDaniels, averaging 22 points and 7 boards. So he's another big senior for them in the front court. They have Davon Harrison averaging about 17 points, who also, on his own, has hit 82 3-pointers at a 41% clip. And Prince Conplay, one of my favorite names in the tournament, another senior, averaging 15 points a game and has hit 43 3-pointers. As a team, a pedestrian 212 3-pointers at a 34% clip. They'll hit about 7 a game, 0-1 versus Sweet 16 opponents, 48% from the field, average about 65 points a game. But even though their record would indicate otherwise, they've actually given up more points to opponents, 69.7. Now we're going to talk about the team that is the odds-on favorite coming in. Number 1 team in the state. Here's why, Brian. They have lost to
They're
nobody.
good.
They have lost to nobody in the state of Kentucky.
Yep.
And you'll go over their stats, and you're kind of thinking, what's What's their secret? We have not seen them live. They're coached by Kevin Klein, 31-2, 15-0 in the region, 5-0 in their district, which is a tough 7th region that includes Mail, Trinity, Ballard. So these are all teams that a lot of people had picked at the beginning of the season. Their only losses came to a fantastic Georgetown prep team out of Maryland, 64-59, and St. Francis Episcopal out of Houston, Texas, 78-75. Their big wins included a win when 1 played 2 against Great Crossing in the tournament, 72-58. They acted like it was a cakewalk. Beat Lloyd Memorial by 12, who's ranked 20th. They played the 3rd-ranked team, Frederick Douglass. You can't say St. X hasn't played anybody. Beat them 72-55. They beat Ballard 3 times, ranked number 24, and they beat North Oldham 64-58. They beat Trinity, their arch rival, in the regional final by 15. They're led by Jeremiah Jackson, who's a junior, 15 points, 5 boards, has hit 57 three-pointers at a 42% clip. Chance Dillingham averages 14 a game. A lot of scouts like his game. He's hit 82 three-pointers at a 41% clip. And then you look, they have Will Hankey averaging 9.4, Jermaine Cameron averaging 9.0. Pretty good. And then their three-pointers, they have hit 312 and averaged 10 a game at 37%, 1-0 versus the Sweet 16, 53% from the field, 68 points a game, holding opponents to 57. St. X in a cakewalk.
Yeah, St. X is going to roll in this game. As you said, only 2 losses this year came out in California in that tournament. They've won 20 straight games. You mentioned all those teams in the 7th region who were pretty good. They rolled through the 7th region. Really not a lot of competition. J-Town, credit to them. They started 0-2,
right.
And they've, put it together. I found it interesting, though. St. X, first trip to the Sweet 16 since 1995, and they last won a state title, 1962. So a lot of history for them. J-Town does lead the series 10-8 since 1997, but forget about it. This is all Tigers in this one.
It really seems like St. X's year, and you're right. This is not a traditional basketball power. This is not even a team that's usually in the conversation. Now, it's a parochial school. We know the rules tend to be, quote unquote, a little different for the parochial schools. But usually Trinity is the school that had taken advantage of that, really soaring in basketball in the last decade. But now it's St. X, and everybody needs to get out of their way.
Yeah, so. I think they're going to be tough to beat. And they may be one of those teams who's, as people like to say, their own worst enemy is themselves, perhaps. You never know, and that's what makes the Sweet 16 great. Quick trivia question for you. Kentucky is one of only 2 states in the country who play an all-state tournament like this.
Every high school.
Do you know the other one?
It used to be Indiana, but then up
Not
until
anymore,
about 15 years ago, they went to the different classes. I would guess a small state.
Yes.
So I'm going Rhode Island.
Delaware.
Well, that's
not
close.
Not bad.
Northeast.
That was the guess I had earlier today.
You mean Rhode Island has classes?
I guess. And the other one I was told, and I looked it up before we started, the person I asked today at school said he thought Hawaii was, but they do not. They have 2 different. They have a Division I and Division II title.
That really is interesting when you think about it, because I still think Kentucky has one of the best overall postseasons in anywhere I've seen.
It will be curious, though, and I'll say this quickly. They have a single A title, a tournament, and they have a 2A tournament, okay? I would wonder, and I asked our basketball coach, Coach Duvall, I said, do you ever think that Kentucky would go to where you play these class tournaments in the season, and then at the end of the year you have a big tournament like this? The All-A's played in January. The 2A, I think, is a little bit before that. It's a little more spread out. Could you see a 3A tournament sometime in the middle of the year? I don't know how you would do it logistically, but you already do have 2 classes who have gone out on their own. I hope it never comes to that, because this is one of the best events on the sporting calendar. I don't think just in Kentucky. I think all over the country.
People in the state that are just fans will take the week off work and come down and watch every game.
Well, I think it's great just to walk around Rupp and see, as you said, the different schools represented down there. I mean, you get so many people who come just, as you said, just to watch it and eat ice cream.
It's great ice cream. That's soft service, fan.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
All right, so now we're kind of through the middle. That was the March 26 games. As we said, this tournament starts on Wednesday. Now we're going to get to the March 27th games, and the first one we have is one that's really hard. These are teams we're not completely familiar with, although North Laurel, the Jaguars, are a team that's been here before. Head coach is Nate Valentine. They beat their rival, the South Laurel Cardinals, 49-44 to get here, and that was after losing twice to South Laurel, once by 15 points in the regular season. How many times do we see that happen? We'll talk about it with Kentucky and Tennessee later. That could be Kentucky's downfall.
7 of these teams in the Sweet 16 had lost previously to the team they beat in the regional final.
Just goes to show you. They also lost to Trinity. They lost to a good Taylor County team in Corbin twice before finally beating. So they had 1 out of 3 times they beat Corbin. Beat a good Harlan County team as well. They're led by Reese Davidson and Jordan Rawlings. These are both juniors. Reese averaging 21 points a game and nearly 10 boards. He's also hit 42 three-pointers for an even 42%. Jordan Rawlings hit 82 for 40%. We got some shooters in this tournament. I'm telling you, that's going to be interesting. As a team, though, they've only hit 204 three-pointers at a 39% clip. That's roughly 6.4 per game. They're 1-1 versus the Sweet 16. 49% shooting team, 63 points a game, giving up 51. And they play a team who I never thought it's a long path for a team like Breathitt County to get to the Sweet 16, and good old bloody Breathitt County, and I'm allowed to say that because my wife has kinfolk that have come from around the Breathitt, Wolfe County areas. They were 24-8, head coached by Jeff Honeycutt this year. They beat Hazard, who I think most of us is a ranked, 7th-ranked team in the state. I think we all kind of just decided Hazard was going to win. You and I picked them.
I did.
And they lost by 2 points to the Breathitt County Bobcats, who lost to Hazard. This is amazing. 4 times. They played them 5. And that's because there's fewer teams and they're spaced out, so they have to play each other a lot. Lost 4 times before beating them in the big one. They also lost to Harlan County and Pike County Central, and then beat Pike County Central 64-60. They are led by Austin Sperry, who averages 24 points and 7 boards a game, 44 three-pointers. Not a great outside shooter, but just one of those kids that has a nose for the basket. Braxton Terry, the only other starter, another senior, averaging 11 points and 8 boards per game. They're under 200 three-pointers this year. They hit them at a 31% clip, roughly 6 a game. They haven't played anybody in the Sweet 16. It's hard to gauge that. They average 68 points a game, give up about 47% shooting as a team. And I hate to do it because that's kind of the Cinderella story there, but I am going to go with the Jaguars of North Laurel to advance.
North Laurel had a tough time getting out of the Region 13. You said it, 2 overtime games. Beat Harlan County in overtime to get to the finals. South Laurel in the final in overtime. The last time these two teams met back in December 23rd, 2017, North Laurel 81-39. Bobcats, great story. Enjoy your short stay in Rupp.
Good way to put it. And it is. It's a great story, but
it is, and that's what makes the tournament so special. And you would love to see a Breathitt County team, win a game and get on to the next round. But yeah, I just didn't buy a T-shirt on Thursday because you're not coming back on Friday.
You get to miss school that day if you're the kids. That's always.
I'm sorry, that's a little
fun.
Harsh. I'm sorry.
It's an 11 o'clock game, so yeah, you'll get off school that day and get to go down and see it and enjoy Rupp, and
You'll be home for dinner.
You'll be home for dinner. Boy, that was rough. That was rough. Hey, I'm part of this too. So nobody from Breathitt County. My name is Brian Blair, and you can come No, good folks in Breathitt County. Hey, we wish you the best and hope they make a game out of that. And they very well could.
They
It's
could.
not. It isn't the toughest opponent in the Sweet 16, so we'll see. The next game is another one that's hard for me to call. You got a pair of 10-loss teams with the Lawrence County Bulldogs at 23-10, coached by Chandler Thompson, and the Montgomery County Indians. Yes, we still have schools that use the Indians in this day and age as their moniker. And Jason Mays, their coach. Both these 10 teams with 10 losses. You look at Lawrence County, losses to Pikeville that they avenged. Losses to Pike County Central that they avenged. They also lost to Paintsville in high-scoring games. Johnson Central. They did lose to Ashland Blazer, who is obviously in the tournament, so they're 0-1 against Sweet 16 teams. Lost to Prestonburg, who they avenged twice. They beat the Martin County Cardinals 97-84 in the Region 15 final. They are led in scoring by Caden Harris and Gunnar Woods, a pair of juniors, averaging 18.8 and 18.7 respectively. Gunnar Woods also has hit 82 three-pointers at a 31% clip. And then Hayden Perry leads the team in rebounds. He's averaging 16.6 boards, has also hit 44 threes. This team has hit a pretty good 266 from beyond the arc at a 32% clip. They'll get 8 per game. 46% shooting team, one of the higher scoring teams in the Sweet 16, 78 points per game while giving up 71. Montgomery County, 22-10, as I said, coached by Jason Mays. Lost to a very tough top 5 Bryan Station, number 4 ranked in the state. Lost to Great Crossing, number 2, so they've played some of the tougher teams. Lost to 25th ranked South Laurel, Powell County, George Rogers Clark, and Trinity. Trinity turned out to be that team you could kind of gauge teams by this year. A lot of teams got to play Trinity this year. They did have wins over Lexington Catholic, Campbell County, and number 11. Their only ranked win this year came against a good Covington Catholic team, 64-62. They're led by Tice Jarvis, a sophomore, one of the youngest to lead a team in scoring in the Sweet 16, averaging 8 points, 7 boards, 49 three-pointers at a 30% clip. Luke Fawns, a junior, averages 12 points, 4 boards. And actually, I said leading, it's Caden Reed that is their leading scorer at 22 points a game and 5 boards. Not a great three-point shooter. He hits 33%, but only 19 of them. They also have a freshman that kind of broke in there, averaging 10 a game, and Andrew Terry. As a team, though, again, not a bad total, 262 three-pointers at a 37% clip, 6 per game, 0-1 versus Sweet 16 opponents, 46% from the field, 67 points a game, giving up 59. This maybe was the toughest pick I had, Brian. I did all my research. I came up with the Montgomery County Indians moving on to play North Laurel.
Yeah, I take Montgomery County in this game as well. Lawrence County could be, and somebody would have to check me on this, but they could be the first team in Kentucky basketball history to lose the first game of their district tournament. Because
I don't know if that's ever happened.
I don't know. The 15th region, everybody plays the district tournament, but everybody then gets into the regional tournament. It's like an Avril Lavigne song. It's really complicated, okay? So Lawrence County loses the first game of the 58th district, still gets into the region, and I think wins like 4 or 5 in a row to win the regional tournament. It's crazy. Caden Reed from Montgomery County, we saw him play a few years ago. He started at Bracken County, transferred to Mason County, now at Montgomery County. He only has 19 three-pointers on the season, but number 19 was a big one because it was a banked-in 3 at the buzzer to beat GRC, and I believe it made SportsCenter top 10.
Nice.
So I just think Montgomery County has played a better schedule on the whole. The 10th region, when you look at GRC, Campbell County, it's a good region. It's
really
a tough region. And, I mean, I can't pick a team who lost their first game of the district tournament to win a game in the Sweet 16. It goes against what I believe in morally and ethically, and I'm going Montgomery County.
Morally and ethically, huh?
I don't know what the difference is. I just feel like saying both.
All right, that game at 1:30 p.m. on Thursday. The next game is going to have an opponent, or it's going to have a team in Daviess County who I think they've flown under the radar most of the year. They weren't really picked to win the region, but were considered a good team. Ended up 25-6 and 17-3 in the region. Ended up this is the 9th region, defeated, not the 9th region, I'm sorry, defeated the Grayson County Cougars to win their region, coached by Neil Hayden. They won 69-56. Now, they've played a lot of teams. They lost to a very good Newport team. A Newport team who was in the Sweet 16 last year. They lost to a good Taylor County team. Louisville Male beat them. Owensboro Catholic, Breckenridge County, and Grayson County beat them. But they did have wins over Sweet 16 team Henderson County, Owensboro Catholic, and Prestonburg twice. They are led by a pair of juniors. That is Jonathan Moss at nearly 20 points a game. De'Aaron Watkins at 16 points and 10, almost 11 boards a game. And they've hit almost 100 threes between them. Moss at a 39% clip, same with Watkins. Jackson Brown, also a good three-point shooter, hit 56 of them at a 42% clip. He's a senior who averages 13 a game. Aiden Iyer, another senior, averaging 9 points a game, 43 pointers. This team has hit 223 three-pointers at a 38% clip. They'll give you 7 a game, 1-0 against the Sweet 16. This is the really crazy thing, an 80% free throw shooting team, one of the best free throw shooting teams in the state. And they shoot 51% from the field, 68 points a game, giving up 55. But they're not going to advance. And the reason they're not going to advance is they had the unlucky draw of the number 2 team in the state, the Warhawks of Great Crossing, coached by Steve Page in one of the best regional tournaments in years. Close games, teams fighting hard, Great Crossings, you almost have to say survived.
Yeah, absolutely.
By beating one of their arch nemesis in the regional, and that's Frederick Douglass. The Broncos, they won 59-57, beat Frederick Douglass. The only other time they played them this year, 78-70. Their one loss, this was the one I said the only team St. X played was 1 and 2 met, and St. X did beat them, but they also beat 16th Ashland Blazer. They beat Montgomery County, Covington Catholic. They beat twice, and they beat Lloyd Memorial. They beat GRC, South Laurel, Bryan Station, who's the 4th-ranked team. So they've beaten everybody but St. X. Their key player, let's be honest, one of the best rebounders in the state of Kentucky, not a bad scorer, Malachi Moreno, 6'11", 22 points, 15 boards, and oh, by the way, is going to play his final games of high school in the place that he's going to play in college in Rupp Arena. He is going to the University of Kentucky. But don't fall asleep on Vince Dawson, another senior averaging 18 a game, 63 three-pointers, 37% clip. The sophomore, L.J. Holman, averaging 11 points a game, and Gage Richardson averaging 9 points per game with 46 three-pointers. But they're under 200 three-pointers. Again, this is another team that really builds its offense around Moreno. 197 on the year, a 37% clip. They'll be lucky to get 6 per game. They are 2-1 versus the Sweet 16. 55% from the field, so they get a lot in the paint. 76 a game, give up 60. And, Brian, I just don't see a way Daviess County, as good a team as they've been, that's a bad matchup. Great Crossing moves on.
Yeah, Malachi Moreno, also Mr. Kentucky basketball. He's the 3rd straight Mr. Kentucky basketball to go to the University of Kentucky. Reed Shepherd, Travis Perry, and now Malachi Moreno. But, yeah, I just think Great Crossing too much for Daviess County. And, again, Daviess County, pretty good basketball team, but you said it. They have the misfortune of playing a team that's won 23 straight games. We talked about the regional championship game where they held on to beat Frederick Douglass 59-57. Their semifinal game against Bryan Station was 59-56. So, yeah, everything was close. First ever meeting between these two schools, and I think the Warhawks cruise in this one.
Okay, so that brings us to our final game, which is March 27th at 8:30 p.m., and that'll do it for the Wednesday, Thursday games, but it also includes our local team. We'll start off with the Henderson County Colonels out of the second region, 23-10, another 10-loss team, not expected to be there. They're coached by Tyler Smithart, and they defeated a team who is a traditional power in Madisonville, North Hopkins, and the Maroons beat them handily by 18 points, 52-34 to win the regional championship. They have a close loss to Daviess County. They were hammered by Frederick Douglass. They did lose to Madisonville, North Hopkins earlier, lost to Trinity, lost to Ashland Blazer, lost to Prestonsburg. So they're 1-2 against Sweet 16. The team they beat was Bowling Green, 63-57. They also beat 13th-ranked Warren Central, 57-56. Led in scoring by Cooper Davenport and Lakin McKinney, both seniors, both averaging about 19 a game. McKinney with about 6 boards, but 82 three-pointers at a 40% clip for Cooper Davenport. They also have Elijah Suggs at 16.6 boards. Dwayne Moss and Xavier Johnson kind of round out their top 5 players. Again, 1-2 versus the Sweet 16. 157 three-pointers on the year at a 38% clip, 5 per game. They shoot 50% from the field. They like their post play. They average 61 points, give up 57. And then the team we're kind of excited about, and we're going to get into when we finish the Sweet 16 talk, a little bit about their lame duck head coach, Tim Sullivan. And that's our own 9th Region Cooper Jaguars, coming in at 23-5, a perfect 15-0 in a tough region.
Mm-hmm.
That says something.
Yeah, it does.
5-0 in the district. They ended up beating a Lloyd team we were very interested in seeing with E.J. Walker. Beat him handily. Scored the first 12 points of the game. Ended up winning 53-38. E.J. Walker had 7 points. We'll comment on that maybe in a little bit. The losses, they did lose a 5-point game to South Oldham, ranked 19th and in the tournament. They lost to Frederick Douglass by 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
That shows you they can play with anybody. Lost to a good Woodford County team, 15th ranked George Rogers Clark. Lost to Walton Verona, but they beat a good Simon Kenton team a lot of people thought would come out of their region. They beat Trinity. That's that team that everybody seems to have played. And they beat Covington Catholic twice, did Cooper. 69-6. Beat them by 5 both times.
Yeah.
And, of course, beat Lloyd in the regular season. Andy Johnson, one of the best players in the state. 23 points, 6 boards, 64 three-pointers, 39%. Has been steady his entire career. Kid's got a bright future ahead of him. And then the Combs brothers, you have the sophomore Roman Combs, who's actually averaging a little more, 10 a game, 6 boards. And then you have Jaden Combs, who's averaging 9 points, 5 boards, the senior. And then, of course, Isaac Brown kind of rounds it out, 9 points and 4 boards. Not an overwhelming 3-point team, 132, one of the lowest totals, I think second lowest in the Sweet 16. At 33%, be lucky to get 5 per game. They're 0-1 versus Sweet 16 opponents. They shoot from the field 50%, average 63, but keep their opponents to 51. Another good defensive team, and I think good enough. In my opinion, having seen him, maybe I'm partial, but I'm gonna pick Cooper to move on.
Well, I'm going to give Henderson County some flowers first before I say they're going to get beat. Okay. Henderson County won the regional tournament. They beat Madisonville North Hopkins in the regional final at Madisonville North Hopkins and smoked them. Okay, so that's a good win for them. And ironically enough, I found this interesting. Henderson County's last trip to the Sweet 16 was back in 1999. Since that time, they had been to the finals 10 times and were 0-10. So they got the W. But Cooper, the Jaguars, you said it, 15-0 in the 9th region. And I just don't think that they're going to be satisfied in just getting to the Sweet 16. You know, they had lost the last 2 years in the regional final to Newport. I think with everything surrounding what's going on there, I think these guys and their coach, especially the players, are going to be hungry to win a game.
Showing it so far.
And I think they're going to get it done, and that Cooper Great Crossing matchup will be fantastic.
Might be one of the best second-round matchups. And I tell you what, we'll hold off on. Let's put a pin in that Tim Sullivan. We don't have a whole lot new to add. We'll hit that at the end of the state tournament talk. But let's move on to our brackets in the second round. Now, this is one we split on. I picked Ashland Blazer. You picked Callaway County. I think we were completely opposite in this one. And then I picked Bowling Green, and you picked Adair County. So clearly we're not going to have the same team in the third round. But I'm picking Bowling Green to upset Blazer. Again, they were beat in the season by Blazer. But I actually like the Purples to go on. This is the region I'm a little nervous about. Some of these were way too easy, I felt like, to pick. This was not one of them, as you can tell by the way we split. But I've got Bowling Green moving on to the third round. Who do you have, Brian?
So I have Ashland Blazer against Adair County.
You did have Blazer. I take that back. You did, yes.
And this is a tough one for me. Both teams really good. I'll take the Tomcats.
How about that?
We'll see. I'll be honest. I'm guessing a little bit. I mean, the first round it's a little bit easier to pick, and then you get into these second round games. But I'll take the Tomcats.
I actually thought about putting them there. So Brian with the Tomcats, and unfortunately, the team that came out of that portion of the bracket's going to end up crossing paths. More than likely with the best team in the state.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Just put St. X in the final for me because
yeah, okay.
I mean that's
way
no
to bury
offense.
the lead, Brian. You're killing us. You're just you leave a little suspense.
Yeah, there's not much there.
South Oldham is who I picked. You picked Danville Christian. Again, that's a pick 'em kind of game that it's just very intriguing. But I did have South Oldham. You have DC. Either way, they're going against St. X. I think we both know that St. X is more than likely going to win that game.
I wonder, though, and I'll say this.
Who's the better matchup?
I think Danville Christian St. X will be a better matchup in that game. And that could be interesting, the big guys from Danville Christian. But I just think St. X is too much for them. And, again, I think they're going to go all the way to the championship game.
All right. So down in the lower half of the bracket, I think we both picked North Laurel and Montgomery County to play. Who comes out of that one? I've got North Laurel continuing. I'm not sure North Laurel really thought they would be in this position, but I think they've got a really favorable bracket here. It's just my opinion, and the Jaguars, a 10-loss team, makes it to the semifinal round.
Well, that would be interesting because if North Laurel does win that game and plays either one, Lawrence or Montgomery, it'd be two 10-loss teams
in the second round.
State second round. One of them going to the semifinals. You know what? I'll go with you on North Laurel. I'll take the Jaguars in that game as well.
Now, and I think you can clearly see the best second round matchup if it comes to fruition, and that would be Great Crossing taking on Cooper. Being a fan of the style of play Tim Sullivan has, that's a very intriguing matchup. Cooper really doesn't have the height to match a Malachi Moreno, but what they do have, they have some big kids in the middle who are strong, who fight for every loose ball, who attack the rim on rebounds, and they've got a guy in Andy Johnson, who is one of the highest IQ players in this tournament. And he seemingly, when he takes a three-pointer, he seems to know this is my shot. He's not a guy that's going to force the game. He's one of those types of players. He kind of lets things come to him. It's a high IQ team. All of that said, I cannot pick them to beat Great Crossing. I think there's a chance. I really do. I think everything, like you said, everything they're fighting for, and I'm very intrigued by what you pick. But this is just one of those times I really feel like Great Crossing is one of the more battle-tested teams in the state of Kentucky. I like them moving on.
So I agree with you. Great Crossing is a good team. Malachi Moreno, obviously an outstanding player. I talked to someone yesterday, however. I get my days. It's still Monday, right?
Still Monday.
I talked to someone. I talked to someone this morning at Owen County who is our JV coach, a very good assistant coach, and I said, "Do you think it's going to be St. X, Great Crossing in the final? Is it set up to be that way?" And he said that he doesn't trust Great Crossing. He said I just think that they've played some games where maybe they let teams hang around. He said, I just don't trust them. So I'm gonna take Cooper.
You're going off book.
I'm gonna take Cooper to win this game. I think you talked about it. Their physicality. And I think what they're doing right now is bigger than basketball. And I really do. And I think the kids are just they have a mission in mind.
Would be the best story.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be honest, I'm rooting for Cooper in
and
that
that's
game.
kind of way that
We're
might,
homers.
That might be a heart pick more than a head pick, but I do. I really think that they've got something going and they want to prove something. And it's not a crazy thing to think they could go down there and beat them because they would have a huge following down there. It would be an unbelievable atmosphere. And I really think in a game like that, if it's tight, the crowd would root for Cooper.
Wearing, and the Cooper crowd wearing their Sully.
Yeah. But I think the non-Cooper people, the non-Great Crossing people would go for Cooper in that game. And that can be a big deal. I mean, when you go down there to those games that you get that kind of Cinderella underdog story and the rest of the crowd kind of starts to feel the energy and kind of push you over the top. So as Great Crossing right there next to Lexington, but I think the crowd gets behind Cooper and pushes them over the edge and Cooper wins it.
So that's a big split for Brian and I, as he will pick Cooper and I pick Great Crossing. So we're going to go on to the next round. So this would be the Saturday morning round. I plan on being in attendance for these. Cannot wait. Brian has Ashland Blazer going in this round against St. X. I have Bowling Green going against St. X. And I don't know if we're going to be the same here. I kind of suspect we will.
It doesn't
really matter who is in that.
Yeah.
I think we both have St. X moving on to the finals Saturday night. And then in the next one, and then I'll let you do those two, I have North Laurel playing Great Crossing. You're going to have North Laurel playing Cooper. I have a feeling both of us are going to go with that bottom bracket pick, as I will go with Great Crossing to play St. X in the final, the one everybody thinks is going to happen. I'm sticking to chalk. Brian's already ruined that. Do you have Cooper beating North Laurel?
If I'm going to pick them to beat Great Crossing, I think they're good enough to beat North Laurel. So I've got to ride that one out. I really feel like I can't pick them to beat Great Crossing and then not come back and pick them to beat North Laurel. The only thing that would be the hesitant thing in that would be, do you have a letdown the next day?
Right.
But again, I think this is more than just basketball, and I'll take the Jaguars to get to the final against St. X.
All right, so Cooper out of the 9th region. You heard it here first. This is our county. And, well, it's technically not our county. Cooper's out of Boone County, but it's our region. It's our area, northern Kentucky. It's all the same place. And Cooper, Brian picks Cooper. I pick Great Crossing out near Lexington in that area. And I have Great Crossing in St. X. And, yes, I'm going to go ahead and follow suit here and pick St. X to win, beat them before you prove me wrong. Somebody needs to beat them, and they haven't.
Yeah, I think this whole tournament is St. X's to lose.
It is.
But I'm going to say this, too, to kind of back up again my Cooper pick. You know, you look at the 9th region in this tournament, and they've won 3 titles since 2010. And they seem like they've done really well in this tournament, even getting to semifinals and final. So I just think that the thing for the 9th region, and obviously Great Crossing as well in that mix, being in their region, and the 11th. But the 9th region, it prepares you so much for the tournament. Just every night, you're going out and playing somebody really good.
Yep.
And I think it's shown in the fact that the 9th region has won 3 titles since 2010. Now, the 11th region's won 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of, is the same kind of idea.
Well, and something to think about, and people, if you look at the state of Kentucky, there's really 3 metropolitan areas. You can argue 4, but let's stick with the 3. You got Louisville, you got Lexington, Louisville in the 7th region, and the 6th region. You got Lexington with the 11th region, and you have Northern Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And Northern Kentucky, yes, it's not a city I'm mentioning, but it really has become that 3rd big metropolitan area. So you're right. The teams that come out of there tend to be more battle-tested.
Mm-hmm.
As things progress. They tend to have more wide-open schedules. Really interesting to see. But you're picking St. X to win it.
Yeah, I can't pick against St. X, who has been the best team in the state for most of the season. If somebody's going to beat St. X, it's going to be St. X who beats themselves.
Can't wait for the state tournament beginning on Wednesday. We're going to kind of keep up with it. Hopefully, we'll be back in our 3rd podcast to give you a recap. But we're going to spend the rest of the time.
Hang on. Let me say one more thing about that, because
Please do.
I think that what's going to be interesting about this, and we haven't touched on this yet, is that there's been a 2-week layoff between the regional tournaments and when the start of the Sweet 16 takes place. So it will be interesting to see if those teams, especially Wednesday and Thursday, who haven't played in a while, are a little bit tight. And it's an interesting thing. Also, I want to give props to Zakiah Johnson from Sacred Heart. I mean, what they've done at Sacred Heart on the women's side is incredible. Won
Congratulations
5
again.
straight state title. She is Miss Kentucky basketball, going to play at LSU.
Oh, just breaks my heart.
Which is interesting, and I just read in doing some prep for this. I said that Malachi Moreno was the 3rd straight Mr. Basketball for Kentucky to go to UK. Miss Kentucky basketball hasn't gone to UK in a long time. I don't remember exactly what it was, and it'll be interesting to see if Kenny Brooks, the new head coach at UK Women, for the UK Women, can draw some of those girls and get them to come to Kentucky. I mean, and I think Zakiah Johnson was looking at Louisville, LSU. I don't know if she really looked at Kentucky a lot. But, yeah, what an incredible thing that would be.
Jeff Walls thought he had her at Louisville.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. So, yeah, it's an interesting take, and Kenny Brooks just got named National Coach of the Year on the women's side. But it would be nice for him, I think, and a big get to get one of these.
And, of course, our women's teams at Kentucky and Louisville have already lost.
Yeah, how about Louisville losing to Haley Van Lith? And then Kentucky, that's a heartbreaker. I mean, that was such a great shot that Georgia Moore had there at the end of the game. And
hats off.
It was. But a great year gone by, and I guess we'll leave that to USC and South Carolina and LSU.
Okay, real quick before we get on to the national tournament, because we do want to spend some time talking about that Sweet 16. And we've done our homework on that a little bit. We have some picks for that. We'll try not to take as much time with that. But we do want to address the elephant in the room again, which is Tim Sullivan and what's been going on. All we can tell you is probably what you already know.
Yeah.
We have reached out to Tim Sullivan. I've reached out to some contacts of Tim Sullivan's. I'm not getting a whole lot of response, understandably. We have made it clear we're a friendly. We just want that side of the story, and we're willing to give you the platform to do that. Heck, we'd love to have Tim come on and just talk basketball if he wants to, and not even worry about all that either way. So if anybody knows Tim and wants to give him an urge, we would love to have him. That said, all we know is what we reported last time. There was a conversation with the principal that involved he and his staff leaving at the end of the season. Note, I did not say resign. I did not say fired. And the reason I did not say that is none of that is very clear right now. We've heard all kinds of speculations, some involving players from the past, some involving current players. I don't really want to get too far down that rabbit hole because we just don't know. What I do know is I think it's safe to say Tim really didn't want to leave and doesn't want to leave. His wife actually tweeted about it. which is the only reason we know about that meeting is from his wife's tweet, because still, and Brian, this is the problem that I have with what's gone on with the administrative side at Cooper. This is begging for a response. And I grant you this is not major college basketball or the NBA, and principals have far many more things to worry about. But you were the catalyst for this as the administration. The longer you let it go, it could be legal reasons they're letting it go. It could be just not to stir the pot any. But for whatever reason, the longer you let it go, you and I have enough media experience in the PR world too, where this is a bad PR move by that Cooper administration, because all you're doing is leaving it up to speculation right now. And guess what? You're looking like the villain. No matter any which way you cut it, an objective party thinks you're looking like the villain. I don't know that that's true. He may have some very legitimate things that are going on, but the longer he goes without saying. Now, what we suspect is that after the state tournament run is over, there's going to be a meeting, and I think more will come forth then. But the odd thing is that Coach Sullivan didn't seem to know exactly.
Yeah.
All we heard was that it had to do with the culture of the program. And now the worst-case scenario for the Cooper administration, now you're talking about a lame duck coach who, frankly, has, I think, is one of the 4 teams in the tournament with a legitimate shot at winning the whole thing. Now, again, we know St. X is favored and all that. But you even have them in the final. Yeah. They have a good bracket to be able to be competitive in, and so they'll have a shot. Man, is the pressure just turning up notches? Tim Sullivan is probably doing fine. I mean, at this point, he's got the news. It can't get any worse. So the administration, all the pressure is on them.
Well, I think what Tim Sullivan's doing is the best thing right now for him and his kids. They're winning.
Yeah.
And he's really not he's really not talking much about it. And I think you're right, because when they get down there to Lexington later on this week, it's going to be talked about around Rupp Arena. I mean, it's going to be talked about, in some of the conversations that are being had. And so, yeah, it's one of those things that every time he wins, he has just more and more ammunition to say, hey, what's wrong with the culture? But, again, I don't know the whole story. I think that it is something, and I've already said this, I think that the kids have obviously rallied around them. The school, the community has rallied around Tim Sullivan.
Clearly the players he has want to play for him.
And they love it. And they're winning.
The crowd's wearing Sully, the fans at Cooper. And I even had somebody who was just, and I want to preface this was wild speculation, but I mean, it makes sense that there has been ever since open enrollment in the state of Kentucky, there's been a lot of players changing schools. We do know that's happened at Cooper, but perhaps there's even some current players that other people feel like you're cherry picking from different schools. The fact is, I don't know. I have no idea if that's even part of it. It sort of fits in like a puzzle, because that would make sense when you're talking about changing the culture, which again is about the only quote we got secondhand. It has to do with the culture of the program. We argued the last time the culture is winning right now, so that can't be what they're talking about. So this is just one of those stories that hopefully we'll have a report on next time, and we're like anybody else in media. We are clueless.
I think it will be interesting to see once they are eliminated, if that comes down to whenever that happens to be, what is the next step. And I said this 2 weeks ago, and I say it again. The focus right now just needs to be on the kids. Let them play. It's a big deal to be in the Sweet 16. They've been so close the last couple of years. They finally got their chance. They've got a pretty good draw, as I said. I mean, I've got them in the final, so I think it's a really good draw for them. Hopefully the kids can go down there and do what they did in the 9th region tournament, block it out, and just play hoop. I mean, that's all they want to do. And hopefully that's what'll happen.
All right, so we'll kind of close out on that. More news to come with that. Hopefully we'll have some when we do another podcast. as some of this stuff gets out of the way, but this is the fun stuff. And what we get to talk about now a little bit is the NCAA tournament, and I'll let Brian kind of take the lead on that. I will say, Brian and I, as you well know, root for two different teams. Brian's a loyal Kentucky fan, which, by the way, I thought played a fantastic game.
They did.
Last night against a good Illinois team. Now, that's not the Big Ten's best or anything like that. But when Kentucky has Butler, I believe they're a different team. When Williams is playing well on the inside, I believe they're a different team.
Well, he's got to learn how to make a layup.
Or dunk it instead of trying to layup,
yes.
which has been kind of the talk. But I still felt like he had a good game. Now it starts getting real for Kentucky. That whole thing about can you beat a team 3 times with Tennessee coming up. And the exciting thing for Kentucky fans is you can beat them, which means Kentucky could very well, in the first year of a new coach, be in an Elite Eight. Brian, I'm not so fortunate.
So can Arkansas.
Well, and that's one, obviously, we'll talk about. Maybe we get into it. Rick Pitino was going on Jimmy Fallon. He was meeting everybody in New York. Spike Lee was in attendance at the game. So the city's excited about New York having another team, and Pitino has taken this team. He ripped through the Big East. He looked like the 2 seed that they were given, and they play the 10 seed, the biggest dark horse in the tournament in Arkansas. And John Calipari, let's just say it, owns Rick Pitino, and that was and one thing I've noticed about the NCAA tournament, if you have a weakness during the season, it really comes to light in the tournament.
Yeah.
It will show up, and that's exactly their weakness was always shooting, and that's what happened. That's what Calipari forced Pitino's hand, and they did not have an answer. I don't think there is anything Pitino can say other than they beat us.
They just got beat, yeah.
The 5-star kids that were at Arkansas started finally playing like 5-star kids now, and there is no telling what's going to happen with those two. But what a game that was. One of my favorite games of the tournament. And I was rooting for Pitino, being a former Louisville coach. But I tell you, Calipari owns him.
Well, it's good to see Kentucky finally win a first-round game.
Well, and
I'm
that's
just kidding.
That's a knife in the back because, as you know, I was at Rupp Arena.
No, I just mean that
celebrating Louisville playing in the first round, Brian.
No, I just mean that John Calipari had most of the guys that were on Kentucky's team last year. So
that's true, yeah.
So nice to see him.
Yeah, I did want to mention, watching that Creighton game. Creighton, I thought was a very good team to begin with. I thought both those teams. Don't even get me started on the seeding because
Yeah.
And I do have a solution to the seeding issues in the NCAA tournament. We might, if we have time, we'll get to that later. So 2 teams who were vastly, sandbagged in that, and a 9 seed Creighton shot 7 3-pointers in a row in the first half to pull away and never look back.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting there watching that, you're thinking, "Oh, come on." At some point, they got to come back to earth. They did not. Played an excellent game, and then they turn around and lose in the next round. So that gets that out of the way. I'm going to take a breath. I didn't wear any Louisville gear today. I'm in mourning. This is a mourning period that I'm just going to have to suffer through. I'm very excited about the job Pat Kelsey's done. Good recruits coming in next year. Louisville has opened up, I hear, about $10 million in money. And already, Brian, 200 players are in the transfer portal.
It's Transfer Portal Monday.
Already.
And Sean Miller joined the transfer portal
Sean
today.
Miller, and now rumor that Chris Mack may be coming back to Xavier after 1 year at College of Charleston. Boy, the carousel is off and running.
Xavier seems like that high school girl who can't figure out who she wants to date, right? We broke up. He broke up with me, but I'll take you back. And now he breaks up again, and we're going to go get another guy who you used to date, but he broke up with you, but now we want him back.
The quintessential jumping off school that boosts you to that upper level. It's happened so many times.
And look, I don't blame Sean Miller at all. I really don't. It seems a little...
It's a little creepy to do it twice.
Yes.
Yes. That I don't like.
I don't
but
necessarily
you're right, it's a good
like
job.
it.
It's a good job.
And if Chris Mack left College of Charleston to come back, I get it. I mean, it's money. And I hear all these people like, well, Chris Mack would never leave again. Oh, why not?
And the same thing, you hear this with players all the time. That player will never leave.
Yeah,
This player will never leave. And you
that's-
look up and they're gone, and then they go again. And we got
Wow.
6-year players who
Yeah.
played for 5
Yeah.
different schools.
Let's take a look at Sweet 16. Okay, so the East region.
I'm ready. I got to get my glasses back.
That's all right. The East region playing the games up in Newark, New Jersey, and this will be on Thursday night. You get number 2 Alabama against number 6 BYU. Alabama, the highest scoring team in the tournament, 91 points a game. How about this? Alabama averages 76 possessions a game. That's crazy. BYU deepest bench, I found this interesting too. 41.8% of their points come from, or 48% of the minutes played come from the bench. I picked Alabama to win it all. I'm going to take Alabama to win this. However, interesting, Mark Pope leaves BYU. BYU gets to the Sweet 16. Good team. I just don't think they're going to have enough to take out Alabama. So I've got Alabama over BYU. What say you?
So many weapons in that. I have to agree with you. I can't in good conscience, and this always gets me in trouble, take BYU. But a team that can shoot the three, and they don't shoot it that much better than Alabama, to be honest with you. They can always get hot, and Louisville faced that. So
Jimmer Fredette.
Go back to that.
Jimmer Fredette.
Jimmer Fredette. I'll never forget that. But no, I think Bama, I think actually they win easily.
All right. Number 1, Duke. Number 4, Arizona. This is a rematch from earlier in the year. Duke took on Arizona out in the McHale Center, and Duke won that game 69-55. Pretty easy. Cooper Flagg, 24 points in that one. Caleb Love, the North Carolina transfer, who went to Arizona, only had 8 points in that game. Now, Cooper Flagg with Duke makes Duke a legitimate favorite to win the NCAA tournament. However, he said, Caleb Love last played against Duke while he was at UNC in the 2022 Final Four. He had 28 points, and Caleb Love beat the Dukies to take North Carolina to the national title in a game which they would lose to Villanova at the buzzer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Arizona.
Brian's going out on a limb.
I can't just go chalk. It's boring to just go chalk.
I'm going to justify, in response, I'm going to justify your pick. First of all, Arizona, one of the better 4 seeds out there.
Absolutely.
That's another one where a team was not seeded correctly. Caleb Love may be, if Cooper Flagg's the best player, he's got to be in the conversation. Caleb Love does. Only averaging 17 a game, but 93 three-pointers. He does so many of the little things. He's got about 4 assists per game. This is a guy who's really good with a team who has really accepted him. They've got some good players up and down this roster. Jaden Bradley, KJ Lewis. They're +5 on assists to turnover. They average about 82 points a game. I think this is a very dangerous game. Duke, as an ACC team, if we've learned one thing about the ACC, they might have even been a little worse than we thought. And Duke has not been tested in a good month.
In a while, yeah.
And so that can't bode very well. Now Duke also,
Duke
they're
is
about
Duke.
+7 in assist to turnover, only have about 10 turnovers a game. Cooper Flagg, 18 points, 8 boards. It's hard for me to go against Duke. I can't do what you just did. I'm gutless. I am a gutless, spineless man picking Duke to beat Arizona.
All right, now on to the West Regional out in San Francisco. Number 1, Florida, taking on number 4, Maryland in that game. Florida survived UConn on Sunday.
Right.
Danny Hurley, when they look at that tape, there's nothing wrong with the officiating in that game. That was a game where Walter Clayton Jr. hit 2 massive shots late in that game. He finished with 23 points. UConn blew several chances. Heck, if UConn could get a rebound on a free throw, they might have won that game. Maryland, hey, safe travels out to San Francisco because freshman Derek Queen, the buzzer beater, he walked. Now,
I've seen it a million times, yeah.
Now, I heard Jay Billis say this a little while ago on my drive up here. He said that it's when do you get 2 steps after you gather the dribble. He took 3 steps. Now,
and technically a step and a half. It's not even supposed to be 2 steps,
Yeah.
and they have long stopped
Now,
calling that.
credit to him. It was a tough shot. He banked it in. It went in. They beat Colorado State. Florida is one of the most athletic teams in this. Although UConn gave them all they wanted, I'm not surprised UConn played that well against them. I thought UConn would play well, but I'm still going to take Florida to beat Maryland and head to the Elite Eight.
Well, talking about Billis, that's the team Billis really seems like he likes for the national championship. I don't know if he said that officially. He loves their game. They average 85 points a game. Clayton Jr., as a senior, averaging 18 points, has hit 106 three-pointers. So it's a team that can do a little bit of everything. They've got good height in Condon and Hoff at 6'11 and 6'9. They typically out-rebound their opponents. Maryland really impressed me. Derek Queen, one of the best freshmen in the country,
He's
16
thick.
a game. And just, the man can play. He's a man among boys as a freshman.
Yeah.
Jacoby Gillespie, too, averaging about 15 points a game. He's hit 84 three-pointers. Maryland proved to me they were legit.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm gutless and spineless. We've decided that. I think Florida wins that game. That's the most I'm going to say about it. I don't know if all the matchups really are going to favor Florida, but I still see them coming out on top in that game. But Maryland, a much better team than I thought. They really impressed me.
But they're not an SEC school. Texas Tech, number 3 against number 10, Arkansas. This is the lowest seed ever for John Calipari in an NCAA tournament. He has taken advantage of it. Texas Tech, a pretty easy win in round 2. They knocked off Drake 77-64. Drake's coach just left to go to Iowa. The Red Raiders, Texas Tech, they're the only team since November 30th to beat the Houston Cougars. Texas Tech is one of those teams that I don't think people talk a lot about. You have Kansas in the Big 12. You have a lot of teams, and I just feel like Texas Tech is kind of one of those teams that gets kind of pushed under the radar. It's not fancy. It doesn't make people. I say Texas Tech basketball. Does anybody be like, oh, I got to watch that? You know what I mean? No offense to them, but Arkansas have been a heck of a story, getting healthy at the right time. John Calipari is a heck of a coach. Give me Texas Tech in this game to take out John Calipari, although it would be incredible if he got to the Elite Eight. And I've already saw Thanksgiving night next year, Arkansas, Duke, primetime Thanksgiving night. But give me Texas Tech.
2 players I love with Texas Tech. J.T. Toppin, 6'9", averaging near a double-double. And, oh, by the way, can shoot a few from the outside. Not the best thing he does. And I love the little guy, Elijah Hawkins, averaging about 9 points, averages almost 4 boards at 5'11", and nearly 7 assists per game. Up and down the lineup, they shoot the three well, 338 of them for a 38% clip. They don't overly turn the ball over. +7 on assist to turnover, averaging about 81 points a game and 37 boards. And I think this is another case where Arkansas is probably better than their 10 seed, but didn't deserve better. Big difference. They didn't deserve a higher seed, but they're certainly more talented. I mean, you've got guys like Carter Knox and DJ Wagner were high school phenoms. Mm-hmm. Absolute phenoms, and they're not even necessarily the best players in this team. You've got Thiero at 16 points a game, my favorite name in all of college basketball, and maybe the best freshman out there in Boogie Flan, averaging about 5 assists a game.
Are you taking Arkansas?
No. No.
Because you're gutless and spineless.
Well, no, in this case, I'm thinking I really like Texas Tech, and I love those teams that fly under the radar, like you said, that nobody, all of a sudden, here they are in the Sweet 16, and they've got a real favorable matchup. I like Texas Tech.
All right.
Move on.
Old Southwest Conference matchup, Texas Tech, Arkansas. That seems like it should be a football game.
Yep.
It seems like a lot of these should be because they're SEC schools who are usually football schools. I heard today someone say that of the 7 teams from the SEC to make it into the Sweet 16, 6 of them were football schools. And I thought, I wonder who he's leaving out. Oh, yeah, Kentucky. There we go. Friday night in Atlanta. Hey,
Ouch.
We've been to the Music City Bowl. Come on now. Come on now. Michigan State, the 2 seed against the 6 seed Ole Miss. Two words about Michigan State. Tom Izzo. 58 wins in the NCAA tournament. I heard someone say this last week on Monday who said about Michigan State, they said they're one of those teams that as you're filling out your bracket, you don't really think about it, but all of a sudden you get there and you're like, well, I got Michigan State like in the Elite Eight. I mean, they're always one of those teams. This is the 16th Sweet 16 trip for Michigan State, for Sparty. However, Ole Miss has wins this year over BYU, Arkansas twice, Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Now, I believe all of those games took place down in Hotty Toddy Land, down at Ole Miss. So this is on a neutral floor in Atlanta, where Ole Miss will have a nice contingent of fans. I'm still going with Sparty. Michigan State gets the win, although I really struggled. I asked people at the oil change place today, who do you like? And I got 2 votes for Michigan State, and so I went with the guys from Valvoline.
Because it's always good to talk to oil change guys. They have the inside track.
The one guy said, "We talking about basketball?" I'm like, yeah. He's a baseball guy. He's a Yankees fan. And so I was like, okay. I'm like, are you even from New York? And he's like, yeah, my dad was in the military there. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
And if anybody asked you and I right now to go out to our cars and change the oil,
I wouldn't know how to do it.
I just put that out there. I'm not even going to say.
I'm not even going to lie about it. That's why I go to Valvoline.
I'm not saying so I don't have to lie.
Yeah, there you go. Who you got? Michigan State, Ole Miss.
I tell you, Ole Miss, you start looking at the numbers, Ole Miss really matches up well against Michigan State. Love Sean Padilla at 16-1, 15 points a game, Jamin Brakefield. Nothing in this game really stood out to me. So I'm probably going with Michigan State based on Tom Izzo more than anything, although they're 2 great coaches, 2 pretty evenly matched teams. That's a pick 'em if you ask me, and I'm just going with Michigan State.
Yeah, I think it is too. Absolutely, but I'm going with Michigan State as well. Now, number 1 Auburn versus number 5 Michigan. Since 2000 and since 2004 or 2000, I believe it was, since they started having number 1 overall seeds, since they started giving that title, only 4 number 1 overall seeds have won the title. 2004, Florida. 2012, Kentucky. 2013, U of L. And last year, UConn. So Auburn is the number 1 overall seed playing in Atlanta. The Tigers looking for their second trip to the Final Four. They went in 2019 and had the heartbreaking loss to Virginia at the buzzer when they
phenomenal game.
It was a great game. Michigan has 2 7-footers, Vladislav Golden, who's 7'1", and Danny Wolf, who's 7 foot.
True twin tower.
Oh, they are. One wears 50, one wears number 1. So the inside is known as Area 51.
I like it.
Auburn, one of the better defensive teams in this tournament. That is Bruce Pearl's kind of his ammo. They have Janai Broom, who's an incredible player, and he can only guard. This is what my son told me. This is analysis from my son. He can only guard one man at a time, which makes sense. I mean, there's only one of him. Okay. However, all that being said, I almost picked Michigan. But I didn't. I picked number 1 seed, overall seed, Auburn, to get to the Elite Eight against Tom Izzo. Bruce Pearl, Tom Izzo. Wow. That's an incredible matchup. Can't wait.
And maybe we're wishing for that because there's a lot of this that gives you pause if you're Auburn. The thing I can't get over with Michigan, as good a lineup as they throw out there, as big a team as they are, still hit 281 three-pointers, though. Because you got a guy like Danny Wolf who's hit 36 three-pointers on the year. I mean, he's 7-footer hitting. We see that more and more these days. All of that said, then what happened to them periodically this year where they just lost some inexplicable games? Now, they got hot late.
Yeah. I think some of that was emotionally they just got worn down. And I think some of that they were going out every night with a target on their back.
Wow, that's a stretch. I don't know. That's a stretch.
And you're right. They did have some stinker games. But and when they went on the road, everybody was going after them.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately they are I don't want to say the best team in the tournament because I didn't pick them to win it all, but they're really good, and I think they're just better than Michigan. Not by much.
Look at it this way: it's one of those situations you keep wanting to ask them, what does Broome do against the Giants? My question is, based on some other games they've played this year, what are they going to do against Broome? I think Broome is a beast.
Because Broome can stretch it out and shoot a three. I think a little bit more than
can handle the
guy.
ball.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah.
And then when you put in that mix the good guard play that has kind of followed this team.
Yep.
And how about the freshman Pettiford really coming on and starting to assert himself now in double digits? There's so much I like about Auburn. The pace, everything. 303 3-pointers. I see Auburn winning.
All right, Midwest region, Friday night in Indianapolis. I'm going to gripe a little bit here for just a second, and I'm going to say that the NCAA is unfair to teams who play these games in giant football stadiums. It's wrong. They shouldn't do it.
Yep.
You take them out of their element.
But then every Final Four is going to be played.
I get it, and I understand why they do it. It's about butts and seats. It's about money. I get it. I don't blame them. I just think it's unfair that they do it to kids. I'm also going to not start with the Tennessee-Kentucky game and go to the late game Friday night. Number 1, Houston against number 4, Purdue. How about the number 1 seed in the Midwest being sent to Indianapolis to play Purdue, whose campus is an hour away from Indianapolis?
With their own Twin Towers.
Absolutely. Houston, however, as I said, one of the top defensive teams in the country. They won the Big 12 tournament by beating Arizona. Purdue, as I said, playing close to home, and they are looking for back-to-back Final Fours. Purdue has wins over Maryland, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Michigan. Houston never won a national title. Of course, went to the Final Four in 1983 with Phi Slamma Jamma. They have 6 trips to the Final Four, which is the most trips to have not won a title by any team in college basketball. All that being said, after what Houston did to Gonzaga, I like the defense of Houston, and I'm going to say, number 1, Houston, Purdue, you have a problem.
Yeah, Again, Purdue is another one of those teams who I wasn't overly impressed with. It would not have shocked me if they had won in one of their first 2 games, and I think a lot of people felt that way. Houston has that one thing that so many teams covet. They've got speed at every position. They hound you on defense, and they may quietly have the best coach in the tournament. Now, I'm going out on a limb a little bit, but let's be honest. I mean, Kelvin Sampson has resurrected other programs. He is a long time
best coach to not win a title.
I think you'd almost have to say that right now.
All right.
And I love him, and I love what he does with this Houston team. I don't know that they win a national championship. I don't know that they get back to the Final Four, but I do think they stop Purdue. So we're pretty in lockstep.
All right,
right now.
Friday evening. I'm just glad it's at 7:30 and not 10:30 because I'm an old guy. I can't stay up that late.
Stay up for these.
Number 2 Tennessee versus number 3 Kentucky. The question, we've already said it. Can you beat a team 3 times? If you're Auburn, you beat Ole Miss 3 times, so it can be done. Tennessee never been to the Final Four. Mark Pope's had a great season. They are a fun team to watch. They're an old team, which is unlike many of the Kentucky teams in the past. They're very experienced, and they play well together. They have Butler, who is phenomenal. They have Garrison, and they have Williams down low. I think Tennessee's better. I like Tennessee. I don't think Kentucky can beat them 3 times, and I think it's number 2 Tennessee by about 6 or 7 Friday night in Indianapolis. They knock out the Wildcats. Number 2 Tennessee advances to play number 1 Houston.
If you look at what I mentioned before, the tournament really exposes your weaknesses. Now, Kentucky's a bit of an enigma because when they don't have Butler, they have not played well. When they do have Butler, they're a completely different team. This particular game, I think the guy that really could decide the game is Kobe Bray. I've been waiting for him to take over one of these games. We both know his ability to shoot from the outside at 44%, hits 92 of them. He's one of the best shooters in the country. Can flat take over a game. I love Owe. I think he is the heart and soul of this team.
Yeah, I do too.
And again, I'm prefacing it to say I did pick Tennessee, but I'm telling you, the only good reason I can come up with is I think some of Kentucky's inconsistent shooting nights is one of their weakness. I think the inconsistency at shooting is a weakness. If you can neutralize Brea, they're a very pedestrian outside shooting team.
And they're playing in a big
And they're again.
we'll see how that affects.
Cavernous environment, and it's hard. And the other thing that I decided on, it's so hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. That's not just a cliche. That's not just a thing. It's real.
Yeah,
it's hard to beat a team 3 times. So I do like Tennessee in that game.
All right, so I've got Alabama and Arizona. You have Alabama and Duke. I'm going with the Crimson Tide to get to the Final Four.
Wow. I mean, it's an SEC team. I like that. I'm sticking with Duke. Even what I said about Duke, I still feel like they're one of the best teams in the country, and it always seems like the best player gets to the Final Four. So I'm sticking with Duke in that.
Number 1, Florida was my pick down in the West or out West against number 3, Texas Tech.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to sound like an SEC homer. The Gators are really good. They're more athletic than Texas Tech. I take the Gators to advance to the Final Four.
Yeah, I'm sticking with chalk here, too. I've got the Gators advancing.
All right, how about on the other side? We've got number 2, Michigan State against number 1, Auburn.
Love that game.
I do, too. And this is one where I know people are like, you are not really going to have 4 SEC teams in the Final Four, are you? This is a tough one because I think Auburn's really good, but I go back to what you said earlier. They had some uh-ohs in the middle of the year. Michigan State and Tom Izzo. Can Sparty get to the Final Four? I'm going to say yes.
Ooh.
Michigan State. And this is not, my bracket is busted way at home, so this is all new for me. I'm kind of doing this a little bit on the fly, but I'm going to go Michigan State gets past Auburn in what would be a 30-28 game.
I had St.
I did
John's
too.
in the Final Four.
I did too.
No, I got Auburn. I think this is, to me, it's Auburn's year.
All right. Number 2, Tennessee. Number 1, Houston. Houston would seem like the logical pick in this game, but you know what? The Vols have never been to a Final Four. These guys are on a mission to get to a Final Four because they've never been. They got close. They've been close. Give me Tennessee to go to the SEC Invitational.
It's really hard to argue with any of these picks. I think the teams that we came up with in the Elite Eight are very legit teams, and any of them are capable. Like I said, I'm going to stick with Kelvin Sampson over there, and I'm sticking with chalk. It's right back to Houston. I've got basically the 4 ones. I've hardly ever do this, and here I am with 4 1 seeds in the Final Four.
It doesn't happen very often.
2 SEC teams. You got Duke out of the ACC. That's what I'm going with.
Well, I picked Alabama to win it all on my bracket at home, so I'm going to stick with I'll go Alabama-Tennessee final.
I like it. My final was Auburn, and this time I picked Houston over Duke. This is where I think Duke ends it. Again, it's hard to contest with that speed. I think Auburn over Houston for the national championship. It's nice to do a bracket where you start with the Sweet 16. That's kind of nice.
If I could do that every year, I would be really good. I might be really good at it.
One trend that we've noted, Brian, is that not as many of the big upsets, and I think with the transfer era, it's a little tougher to do that. Teams with money are going to get more and more players.
Here's what Jay Billis said earlier today on the Dan Patrick Show, and I like Jay Billis a lot. And so Jay Billis said, 1 year a trend does not make. So let's see. He said, now 5 to 6 years from now, you're seeing where you don't have the lower seeds. Arkansas is the lower seed. The highest seed left in the tournament, which it's like the first time in so many years there hasn't been an 11 or a 12 at this point. If it continues, is this a case where NIL has played a factor? Maybe. He said, but we don't know yet until you get down the road and you see for sure. But the SEC was awesome this year. Duke was clearly awesome this year. The Big 12, pretty good league. So I think when you just look at it, talent in this case won out.
It did.
Now, Kentucky, whole new team. They weren't there last year. I mean, he went into the portal and got those guys to come in, and they're in the Sweet 16.
And by any standard, this is a successful season for Mark Pope and the Cats. By any standard.
But Tennessee, those guys have been there.
Yeah.
Alabama, those guys had been there. That's not Auburn, I mean. And even guys at Grant Nelson, guys at Mark Sears, those guys had been there. So they weren't new. They aren't new. So we'll see. I don't know. It has to play a factor because obviously these schools, as you said it's about money. And if Louisville can offer $10 million in NIL, NKU can't do that. Miami of Ohio can't do that. Xavier might not be able to do that.
And let me tell you, folks, if you're wondering, that's what the kids are looking for.
Oh, absolutely.
For the paydays.
Show me the money. And I don't blame them.
We've talked about it. I think the biggest thing about that, and again, we need to kind of wrap it up, but the biggest thing about that is they opened Pandora's box. You can't get the cat back in the bag, so to speak. Well, I used a lot of metaphors there, but it's out there. I don't know how you rein it in, if you rein it in.
I'll say this last thing, and then I promise I'll shut up. If it were my kid, I would tell him to go get the best deal.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Brian Blair, Scott Borders, we were very happy to bring you episode number 2. We're really going to work on the length of these things. But there's a lot of stuff. This is March. There's a lot of stuff going on. We got a lot going on. We couldn't even get to the women's side of things very much. So hopefully we'll be able to trim it down some over podcasts that happen across the summer with less sports going on, although the Reds will be back in action. We may have to cover that some. But for tonight, it's been fun. We'll try to catch up with you as things progress in the NCAA tournament, and we'll give you a full report of anything we found while going to the state championship. For Brian Blair, Scott Borders, so long.